Hi, it's Emma Cartmell here from CHS Group. You might have noticed that recently we've been sending out lots of positivity and good news stories across our emails and social media due to the coronavirus and COVID-19. But inspiration isn't enough. It's action that really counts. So what we've decided to do at CHS Group is make contact and reach out to all of the people who inspire me, coach me, mentor me, and ask them to share with you their top tips and their things that we should be doing right now to actually take action and come out of the other side of COVID-19 stronger and fitter. So please sit back, invest the next 30 minutes of your time into your future and enjoy. Hello and welcome. Today I am very excited about welcoming Lara Morgan, a businesswoman, author, investor. I have known Lara for a few years now and been fortunate enough to have been mentored and coached by her. And I'm always inspired by her journey and what she's been through. But most of all, I'm just amazed by her no-nonsense approach to business. So welcome, Lara.
Thank you.
So Lara, I'm a big believer in learning from other people, but not just the highs, the lows as well. And you've had the opportunity, shall we call it, to build lots of resilience over the years. You've gone through 9/11, living through COVID-19 now. But let's start from the beginning, the 23-year-old businesswoman who launched Pacific Direct. Can you just get us up to speed with kind of, you know, your journey so far?
Yeah, make me feel really old. So that is a very long time ago. In 1991, I was 23. By then I had, I would say, probably one of the most privileged upbringings, in the sense that my parents abandoned me to boarding school. They lived in Hong Kong, and clearly the furthest boarding school they could find away was in Scotland. I was born in Germany, but I also had the privilege of already speaking Cantonese and a bit of Mandarin. So I had a very privileged upbringing growing up in Asia and kind of seeing the world as a very small place. And so when my dad went bankrupt at 18, I was already getting jobs. I couldn't go to university, we couldn't afford it. And I started selling. So I had no sales training. So for those of you that don't know how to sell, you can teach yourself. You go and buy books at W.H. Smith's and you start learning. You know, you shadow people, and frankly, you do a lot more listening, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And by 23, I guess I could sell. And that was also via the Middle East, where I'd sold Yellow Pages advertising space, which, if you ever want a great salesperson, employ one who sold ad space, because that's tough as hell. In the old days, we always used to say employ people from Yellow Pages, but it's different now. So at 23, I decided in a recession in 19, it's no longer the last recession, and it sure as shit won't be the most memorable, because I think the one that's up and coming is going to be very memorable. But started selling sewing kits and shower caps, which is obviously deeply exciting. Realistically, I was an arrogant, stupid child, never built a business, and sort of went around, and the only thing I probably packed really well was my humility and my awareness that I didn't know much. And you know, you can sell, but if you don't know the rest of business, you've got a lot to learn. So I think it's a very, you know, sensible, for want of a better description, common sense approach to just being hungry to learn all of the time. So Pacific Direct started, I even got the company name wrong. It's the stupidest company name in the world. I started with Pacific Manufacturing, and just very briefly, and I am timing to try and not bore you all witless, but the business began. We sold sewing kits to the Dorchester, pre-threaded sewing kits, posh hotel. Thought I was making really great progress, and sort of worked out that if you sell a lot of sewing kits that are 19.2p, you don't make. Started having to develop a product range for hotels. I'd never sold really to hotels before. The service terms were horrific. I knew nothing about finance. I had never employed people. And again, back to common sense, which is I really put the customer's needs in absolutely front and central. So I never made a promise I couldn't keep, but that didn't mean I didn't fly by the seat of my pants. And I lived with the best part of 10,000 sewing kits around my desk in my 1-bedroom flat for the first year. And off the back of that, you know, we listened to what the customer wanted. We knew they wanted innovation. If ever you are selling like for like, the bottom differentiator is price, which is a race to the bottom, or added value, which is innovation, and sell it better. So invest in your sales expertise, because you can sell value by being honest. And you might even get a higher price for exactly the same item simply because you're better educated, you have the right certification, you have the right knowledge, you have credibility. Those things are happening to me as I am a grey-haired, slightly more experienced than 23-year-old. I made all the mistakes. I tried to sell to everybody. I thought I could be a 5-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star specialist. I, you know, bothered with admin at weekends. I worked every hour of the day. Did always look after my health. I always stayed healthy and well and played sports. I'm competitive and I set targets. And I think knowing your finances, which I taught myself, the target setting piece, and a kind of competitive edge were all huge advantages. But most of all was the sales expertise, and the rest of it I could teach myself operations. And, you know, we are laughably so far back that having a laptop was a wow. We weren't quite in the era of telexes, but, you know, when I laugh about, I've had my business in a bag, in a handbag for the best part of, oh God, nearly 30 years, because I'm 53 next year. But, you know, I always invested in technology, in efficiency, in simplification, always strived. And I think it's a really good watchword to be better and different, to be faster, to be more economic. I think my Scottish genes drove in the fact that I wanted to buy best and be alert and be the fastest. And so I'd get up at 5:45 in the morning, drive to London, having dropped off samples because I thought it was free of charge. I was an idiot. I should have used the post. It would save me time. I would have got more sleep or done better. But when I sampled, I did everything personally with a personalized handwritten note. And it just seemed natural to me to treat people with respect, particularly because most of my customers scared me witless. They were kind of the dragon housekeeper, brilliant people. And without them, we have no hospitality industry. So for that, I'm very grateful. And actually, my God, are they going to have a tough time, because there are going to be huge issues coming for hygiene and cleaning. And so my respect for the hospitality industry, which will be a whole different place, grows and grows. And it did then, because what we used to do is we used to invent ways of teaching my team how to grow and learn the industry. I was passionate about learning hospitality. And I think whatever industry you're in, you know, the one thing you have to do is work at being the expert. So in summary, just to get to kind of phase one of my career, Pacific Direct built a global business selling in 110 countries. We exported, we had factories in China and the Czech Republic, which I say in a blasé way, these were huge decisions at the time. Exporting to 110 countries says to anybody listening, you know, you can do it too, because if this idiot could do it, and I flew by the seat of my pants, as I say, then, you know, there's so much education and shortcut. And once we get traveling again, we really need to encourage British businesses to sell. Mm-hmm. There's a sense check, there's a common sense list of things, but Pacific Direct made £3.3 million a year in its year. I sold it in 2008. And the other really salient point where there's so much discussion about finances, you know, do not sell equity unless you have to. I owned 99% of Pacific when I sold it for over £20 million, which clearly I don't regret. But also I didn't realize it was so very rare. And, you know, maybe there are some people on this conversation that need to think, have I been as efficient? Have I learned some lessons? Do I need to start again with greater data control, greater creativity, take all the expertise I've got? Because, you know, if through no fault of your own, you're suffering and you may not want to live to fight another day in the present format, take all the gems of what you've learned and rebuild something fresh and new. So I guess that's sort of history and collaboration. And then there's sort of the middle investment period. But far away, Emma, what do we want to share?
Yeah, so, I mean, the fact that you said it is rare to build up and sell a business for 20 million. It's quite unheard of these days. So, you know, absolute kudos to you. But it wasn't plain sailing. You kind of make it quite blasé. I was 23. I hit the road. I was knocking on doors, selling,
17 years of pain.
And, you know, 20 million pound later kind of thing. But I know you've had that experience where business just in one day dropped off a cliff, and that was 9/11. Can you just share with us?
Well, actually, it wasn't even that simple. I mean, we had, for those old enough, foot and mouth put the hospitality industry on hold in Britain. Mm-hmm. I can never remember now. I think SARS in Asia completely kiboshed our manufacturing for a period of time. And then we had Osama bin Laden raining on my parade, which was annoying at best, but literally took the hotel world to, from kind of mid-70s, 80s occupancy to 6% overnight. But I have to say, it's nothing compared to the unprecedented times we're in today. I was sued for $1.8 million, I think it was, in America for employing somebody because they just wanted to slow me down. That's one of my bad days at the office. And I look back and I think, God, I was young and I'm the mother of 3 fantastic children. But, and I guess that's a note to others that you don't have to put your whole life on hold, but it isn't easy breastfeeding and going to meetings. It's just different. What I would say is, you kind of, one disaster of somebody printing 40,000 pens the wrong way around urgently for a conference didn't go down well, but we survived, and all of these things that are thrown at you. I had to let over 30% of my staff go when Osama bin Laden literally decimated hospitality and travel. And it's miserable, but I had, thank God, been to a lecture called Cut Once and Cut Deep. And I guess that's the most probably powerful message, which is it's tough when you have to absolutely drive down overheads. But the truth is, if you don't drive them down, then you will die the death of 1,000 cuts. So sometimes you just got to face up to people and go, we're not coming out the other side the way we went in, irrespective of your skill set, irrespective of all the brilliance you've brought. You may have to let people go. The good news is you can re-employ them, and if you treat them with respect and openness and you do the right thing by the law, and respect is really important. And you do a one-to-one. And I mean, I went home and cried in the lay-by for 45 minutes until I had no more tears. But, that's definitely the toughest day of my business career. I'll never forget it. But I had to let a lot of people go. And we did re-recruit lots of them. And in fact, my PA today, Mandy, who is once again furloughed and laughing about it, I let her go. She was my executive PA, and she just didn't have the skill set, the multitasking, customer service, financial, all mixed skill set that I felt we needed in the business. So when you're reducing your team, you have to think about real agility and survival tactics and flexibility. And sadly, we take those things into concern. And if somebody just doesn't have that breadth of agility, it's better to let them go, because you'll have a stronger business coming out the other side that then may allow you to re-recruit them. So, you're going to need to sit back from your business, revise a plan. Plans are boring, but the truth is the really good stuff comes to the top when you write it down. And I mean, pen and paper. Give yourself a break, maybe go for a long, long walk and make considered judgments. However tough it is, you'll never look back, because your gut will tell you that you made the right tough decisions. And hopefully you get some kind of quiet spring in your step that obviously you're not running around the business celebrating, but you will have the staff you need that can allow you to, drive new growth, be creative, add innovation. I mean, one of my team is today launching a hygiene set for hospitality. We launched a hand sanitizer called Peace of Mind about a month ago. These are all new product. We sold 1 million face masks and then decided to stop selling them, but we sold that 1 million face masks 6 or 7 weeks ago, and then chose not to because I didn't want to steal PPE for the NHS. We're supplying NHS workers with cost price, sleep well and de-stress. You can do stuff because you care to do stuff, but you need the dynamic, energetic, forward-thinking, creative, out-of-the-box thinkers. You do not need the box fillers and the rule followers.
And Lara, I mean, I like that you said it was a course, but the line kind of cut once and cut cut deep. And it's so hard to think like that. And you know, one of the things that you've sent me some techniques to look at, and one of them was to sort of set that 6-month vision, if you like, of where you want to be, and that will help you make the right decisions. But before we get onto that, it's that sense of kind of moving forward and having to make those decisions. But I remember on a coaching session with you a couple of years ago, and you know, your instinct in times like it's just to sell something, to get out there and sell. Do you, did you intend to go? But I think it's that sense of, you know, I think it's, if you just get out there and do something, you do feel like, and we have this mindset that nobody has got any money at the moment, that the whole world has come to a standstill. We were chatting earlier, you know, I've got a friend who his business is thriving. One of your companies are thriving. It's just the money is shifting perhaps. And if you just move into action, that sometimes helps, would you say?
Well, not panicked action though, because I mean, I also know my own weaknesses, and I get very excited about my own ideas, which of course I think are good, and they're not all good. You know, I mean, there's some really nice language around. I mean, the first thing everybody has to have done at this stage is really, really look at the line by line of their finances. So, you know, you're bagging down the existing clients, you're making sure the bills that could be paid have been paid. You've got to realistically accept that some bills may never be paid. So what are those costs that you're no longer able to depend upon as real running income? What are your outgoing costs? Have you, you know, stopped the window cleaner, for God's sake? But everything from the window cleaner upwards, all these pennies add up. You know, we even cancelled, I've got one really small business, you know, less than £500,000, but we looked at the apps that we've signed up to, and we're paying a monthly fee, and we cancelled them. And I think we've saved £184 a month because we've cancelled a whole conglomerate of stuff that actually, on the scheme of things, do we need it now? No, we don't bloody need it now. So you've got to look at your credit lines, and then you've got to look at who have you gathered around you. And then it's about going, well, what is feasible to sell and what is realistic? Because, you know, there are some companies that are flying so well, they'll come to mind, because actually there's kind of, for me, there's a jealousy. How, you know, why is so-and-so doing, why are they so bloody lucky? Well, it's just sign of the times and businesses like that. But, you know, you don't need to sell to someone. They don't need to buy from you. If their business is flying and people are knocking down their door to come for, you know, food boxes and, you know, I don't know, home studio yoga equipment. Yogi-Bare is extraordinary, but actually sold out pretty much until tomorrow. And, you know, meanwhile, is there something you can do to pivot intelligence you have? Is there something you can give to your audience proactively? I mean, out of a conversation the other day came a supplier of mine who has pivoted his business to do protective screens for reception check-in. And, you know, he sells acrylic dispensers normally, and he's just won the WH Smith's contract because he had the brains to develop something, you know, having seen in the supermarket the acrylic, you know, screens being built. What could it, well, acrylic is apparently going to be the new greatest commodity of face masks. You know, and face masks, are they going to be a commodity? Is the price going to come back down? Don't get trapped in the, you're too late to market because everybody's got there first. So I think sell things that help you and help someone else in a stable environment, and also be really tough on payment terms. I mean, we've just converted a major retailer. You know, first of all, they wanted 60 days credit. They wouldn't pay pro forma. Then I said, sod off, you're paying pro forma. Then they said they'd still like 60 days. I said, sod off again. I don't need to sell you my goods. Guess what? They ordered. Mm-hmm. Right? Because actually I've only got so many goods in this one particular company. And, you know, maybe there's some cool collaborations you can do where you're not going to make full margin, but actually you're going to give brand exposure and win new traffic, win a new audience. I think we approached with Gate 8 Luggage today, one of the shirt makers. You know, how many office shirts are the Pink and the Charles Tyrwhitt and others of the, well, actually those guys are going to come back to work, but perhaps you need to incentivize them to think of looking in their wardrobe and going, actually my shirts are really shitty, But if you incentivize them with a travel adapter, because they're going to be thinking, shit, I want to travel, maybe Gate 8 can send them travel adapters. So it's about common sense, I think. You know, sell something that somebody is going to find useful, has perceived value, combines well, brings new traffic, and isn't going to be sold to somebody who, frankly, is too busy to talk to you because you're banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
You know, help somebody else take their problems away.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting into some practical tips then. So, so from the notes that you sent me a few techniques, and that first one is kind of just around that, looking at where you want to be in 6 months' time. And I think that has helped me massively in terms of setting that strategic intent or that vision, because then everything we do now is leading towards that. Can you just talk a bit about just tips that you'd like to give people, really?
Yeah, no, and I mean, just to give credibility where credibility is due, I'm a member of the Supper Club, which is for businesses that do £1 million. I've been a member since 2007. I'm kind of one of their flag bearers. But whatever you do, be a member of some kind of business club, because the brains of the many is going to be more valuable than one or two. Now, the other thing is that Corporate Punk, who did this lecture on what should you be looking at, I'm going to share some thoughts from them, but I also will add some of my other thoughts. So I thought one of the best things that was praised was, you know, what does victory look like? For some of you, victory might be a new startup in 6 months' time. You know, also, we've been writing and mapping the journey of the customer. We're also in the fitness industry. So we might be selling, you know, hygiene towels or wipes, or even, you know, something to wear to come and go from the gym. What is it people are going to do or require differently? What's a halfway house until we get fully back up and running and we've got a solution for COVID? What is somebody going to invest in themselves to give them a hygiene or a protectivity? Now, once you've mapped the journey, let's call it the touch points of the way you work with your customer relationship, what are the things that they're going to be looking out for that are going to help them get back to business? So how do you make your offer compelling and attractive? I mean, I've just got off the phone to Marriott Hotels, and, you know, the protective screen idea, he's like, shit, we should have thought about that weeks ago. How would you, you know, and then you've got to now teach your staff that you're selling a new strategy. So how can you do that? I said to Emma at the beginning of this call, you know, what are you going to do if you need to pivot more? And when you describe what you're going to do, if your 10-year-old can't understand what you're going to do, then you're not pitching it right. And you have to be able to pitch it really sharp and really quick. And then you've got to be brave enough to build the parameters of kind of what are the imperatives that you're going to live and die by. And have you got a supplier resource? I mean, I've been on the phone at 5 a.m. this morning because I've got a particular product in my mind that I think is going to become hotter than sliced bread in this particular industry, which clearly I'm not going to tell your audience, but I just bought 10,000 of them. And I just thought, oh, bollocks. You know, now I've got to work out a way to sell them. So I might be back saying, anybody want to buy? I'm that convinced. And they're not cheap, right? So it's a big risk.
Would you say, so that sense now is that if you want to make those big strategic decisions, is that this COVID-19, it's not a flash in the pan. All these changes that we're making, they're going to be with us for a long time. So if you're going to pivot, like you say, from the acrylic screens, that's not going to be on 3 months that business is done, you go back. That's, you know,
no.
And the industry.
No, I mean, now think about it, right? But also think, what's the next stage? So my staff and I have been, I mean, just doing a friend a favor, really, offering out this acrylic screen. But actually, what I sell is the cleaning fabric, that, you know, the cleaning material. Is there, you know, something we can do about hygiene? Actually, we're looking at a room spray to clean rooms down really quickly with a still a natural lean. We're looking at, you know, when you go into an overly cleaned, massively hygienically, synthetically cleaned room, maybe you want to put a nice fragrance in there. I mean, one of the things that we've been absolutely delighted and bowled over with is the amount of bosses that are coming to my brand Scentered, which is, you know, all about thoughtful well-being, kindness. We're seeing a lot of gifting to say thank you to NHS workers, but the truth is that people are also giving, you know, care gifts to their own staff because they're using, I mean, here I am in my barn. Aren't I lucky? I've got a barn and I've got a fire on and I'm kicked out by the children because apparently I make too much noise at the kitchen table, but I've got another room to go to. other people don't have that room. And I think if we could show care and appreciation for home working staff by even just sending them, you know, a token of care. So the other thing that I like is once you've got this new idea, this is the best thing I've learned in the last 4 weeks, do a post-mortem, but it's called a pre-mortem, to think about what could go wrong. You've got all this idea, but actually, why don't you kill it before you launch it, to then think, why didn't we think of that at the time? What went wrong if it went wrong? What are we going to avoid making things go wrong? You know, is there a regulation that you don't know about? The government have just changed some of the import regulations around face masks. So if you don't have the right registration stuff, you can't just trade face masks because there's a lot of black market crap. So you still need to have objectives. You need to have a clarity around what you're trying to achieve with this innovation. You need to be clear with your staff. Is it short term, medium term, long term? You know, I don't want to be selling crappy hygiene products. I want to be selling, you know, sustainable products for hospitality. But if that ain't selling at the moment, I want to stay in business. And you've got to make some really honest decisions and go, you know, what's the time scale you think your industry is working within, because every industry will work differently. And then again, you know, think about what would be on its tombstone if you can't make this right, and is it worth the cash that you may have to put into it, and is it unique enough or better enough or different enough that yours gets the fair price in the market? Because I think the market is dreadfully shrinking, particularly, I guess, in conference space. Yeah, but what you can't do, and it's just to underline it, Emma, is you can't do nothing. You got to do something.
And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Is not burying your head in the sand. I know when all this happened, I'll be honest, for me, first couple of weeks, you know, your head gets down, you know, you kind of panic and all the what ifs and what ifs come into, you know, you self-sabotage. But the minute I went into planning mode and, you know, scenario planning, and I've got about 5 or 6 different financial models. Now, none of them will be accurate, but at least I feel in control of knowing what will. And then now my brain is overload creative, and I love that pre-mortem, because I'm somebody who has like 20 ideas, you know, when I get out the shower in the morning, and 19 of them are dreadful. One might have a fighting chance. So that pre-mortem, I think, is going to be my biggest takeaway from our chat today.
I mean, the other thing that I think is really, I mean, I think resetting and the discipline of resetting every Monday and almost every day. You know, I'm extremely disciplined with time allocation, and
I know this is the longest time I've had with you ever.
No. Well, sometimes I go through my diary on a Monday and I then write to my PA and say, cancel all of these, because they've got into my diary because of good salespeople. I still have the right to cancel, right? I still may find that in my reprioritization on a Sunday night that I don't have enough time to get my priorities done. So I will cancel something that isn't hitting the spot, and it's brutal and I feel rude, but I do it as well out, you know, as soon in advance. So it's Monday morning, and I may reset it, and I may say, look, let's reconvene in a month. And then what I do is I put the ball back in someone else's court, because if it's really important to them and they're any good, they'll come after me. They already know where I am, right? So, and the other tip that I think's been priceless is when I'm trying to get a hold of the big people and the decision makers, text a polite note, text a nudge. I mean, I've been literally texting people to say, you're running out of time. I'm not going to be able to do this. I mean, and actually some of the really powerful stuff is when stuff is selling really, really quickly, like our hand sanitizer, it's like, take it or leave it. I don't need to negotiate. So either send me through an order and make your payment, or else it's not yours. And I'm afraid you have to know your parameters, and then you just have to say, apply time accordingly. And, you know, we've pivoted most of our sales team into the businesses that are moving quickly, and other roles are really in threat, being honest. Mm-hmm. You know, we are going to sell our way out of this.
But it is, I think, you know, to kind of, on a positive note, we have got the ability to pivot. We have, if we give ourselves that space to think, to learn from other people, like we're doing today, and also know that perhaps we will get through this, but it might not be when we hope we will or how we hope we will. But
well, the other thing is, I think people have got to give themselves a break. I mean, you know, sometimes, and this is an absolute, right? So it's been my gospel. In fact, I can literally show it to you on screen. Have a look at, I don't know, can you see that top corner there?
Prospect today, does that say?
Yeah, right. Prospect today is, I prospect someone new every bloody day of my life. I always have. But how do you prospect a new target customer every single day like religion? Right? Because people often complain to me that they don't spend, you know, they're in the weeds. Well, actually, if you do your first prospect every day, then you've done something proactive for your business every day.
And it's that discipline, isn't it, to do it, but also, like you just said, knowing that you have the right to say, I'm sorry, I can't take this call, or I can't do this because I've not done my priority. Because we could easily get through this, through the lockdown even, for example, and then say, I've actually not done anything to move myself forward.
Yeah.
If you know, because the roles, you know, the days are rolling into one, etc. So, yeah.
So there's, you know,
anything else you want to share with us? Because we've had a very insightful 30 minutes or so.
I mean, the truth of the matter is unless you action advice, the time you've just spent for half an hour is a waste of time. I think quite often, I mean, literally, I can, you know, silly, but these are the names of the people that are working in the business. This was my priority. Shit, these are the things I want them to do this morning. And the first thing I did is I rang through all of that group of people and I've spoken to all of them. I had to reset one of the calls because life's not straightforward. They were probably selling something to someone. And the other thing that I would end the call on, which I really, really mean, is aim high, right? Aim really high. So yesterday I spoke to the head of licensing for Liverpool Football Club. And I'm not going to tell you which brand it was that we were talking about, but I can tell you there is no way they would have taken my call in normal times. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not special, right? I'm not special. I'm just another human being. And I think if you reach out in a polite, I mean, we had an absolute riot. He ended up the call by saying, look, I look forward to doing business together. And I said, look, you are the only thing between me and my baked potato at lunchtime. And I have never said that on a call. And had him roaring with laughter because he knows that I'm a human being and actually do not forget to be human because, you know, I'm going to ask you to buy something from Scentered as a thank you if you found this value, because paying my business back 25 quid for a spend of my time, where I put a lot of value into enterprise, is the other example of you should always be selling, right? Always be selling. You know, KitBrix is devastated because all the events are closed, but so they created a virtual event. What can you do to develop and reach big audiences and grow your traffic? Collaborate, aim high.
Fantastic. Brilliant, Lara. And I'm going to put some links on after this video as well, because I can genuinely say I use all of the Scentered products. The hand wash, the moisturizer, the balm, the aromatherapy balms, everything. And there'll be a lot of hoteliers probably watching this as well. So they'll be interested in all the great stuff you're doing for hotels as well. So I'll definitely collaborate in that sense and do what I can to link up on that. But for now, thank you ever so much for your time. Lara Morgan.
Hey, nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.